Okay. Hey guys. So chapter 3 is lifting and moving patients. This should go pretty quick. There's a whole ton of slides, but we're just going to kind of run through them. So read your chapters. I say it every video, read your chapter. All right, here we go. Same as always. So kind of the introduction to chapter 3, as an EMR, you need to analyze the emergency situation, which is make sure you're seen safe, walk in there, look around, pay attention to your surroundings more or less. Automatically start making a plan of action. Quickly evaluate patient condition, carry out effective life-saving emergency medical procedures. And some of these are going to consist of lifting, moving, or repositioning patients. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So anytime you've got someone who has a pulse, they are breathing, but they're unconscious, we want to go ahead and put them in what's called the recovery position. So we're going to get them preferably on their left side. You can see here how you manually position the arm and the leg so that patient stays propped up. This is to allow to help keep that open airway, and if they do vomit or anything, it will drain out. They're not on their back just gargling. And it also indicates to rescuers in the event where there's multiple patients, as rescue personnel moves in the building, if this patient is laying there like that, then it indicates they've already been seen by someone, and you know that you can continue on, because people don't just fall on the ground like this when they go unconscious. Let's see. So things you need to kind of keep in mind: we do no further harm to the patient. We only move them if it's necessary. Um, Only move that patient once or twice if possible. Move the patient's body as a unit. Use proper lifting and moving techniques, which we'll talk about a little bit. And it's good if you've got someone there with you, whether it's a bystander, a fireman, a policeman, EMS personnel. Um, Someone's there giving the commands or leading, I guess, is in charge, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit when we talk about the types of moves. Also consider these recommendations: delay moving a patient as long as possible. You want EMS to arrive on scene because we have equipment that we can use. We move people every day. Sometimes it's not as cut and dry as just grabbing them by the arms and moving them. Sometimes there's a lot of planning that goes into moving patients. We want to treat patients before moving them, unless it is a dangerous situation and we have to get them moved. Try not to step over patients. Explain to the patient what you are doing. You're going to hear me preach this all through my videos, all through my class. Explain everything you do to your patient. I've already talked about verbalizing in class. We verbalize in real life too. It earns that patient's respect, trust, and it kind of helps calm everybody down because they know that you know what you're doing. If you're saying it out loud, you're letting everybody know what's taking place. So good body mechanics. Know your physical limitations. I'm gonna really pick on the guys here. You're not Superman. I'm just as bad. I still do it today. Um, know what your limits are. Don't hurt yourself trying to be the hero or trying to save your partner's back, or work as a team. Team lift, team move. Um, every chance you have. Sorry, my radio's on. Um, Keep your feet and shoulder width apart to maintain a balance and firm footing. We all know that. We've all been through some kind of class where they taught us that. Maintain the natural curve of your spine. Use muscles in your legs to lift, don't use your back. Try to keep your arms close to your body and strength. or for strength and balance. Avoid twisting your body when you're carrying this patient, and move the patient as few times as possible. So we don't lift with our arms extended way out. We want them up close to us. That's where we're most stable. That's where everything's in line. And those of you who are in class with me, we're going to practice all of this like hands-on. If you're just watching the YouTube video, like always, go to Google, go to YouTube. There's tons of videos out there where people demonstrate this, so you can kind of watch it. I make these videos in my office in my house, so I don't have the equipment or the room to demonstrate it right now. Body mechanics. So improper lifting and techniques can cause injury to you and your patient. Good body mechanics. So if you do everything correctly, yes, it might be difficult, but it's actually easier to lift correctly than it is to reach out or to the side. Use the strength of the large muscles in your legs. If at any time you don't feel like you can lift this patient, or you're going to maybe get yourself into a situation where you're halfway up and you just start shaking, if it's a big patient, if it's a combative patient, if they're thrashing around, don't even try. Let's get more people on scene. It's okay to use 8 people to move one person. Once again, this goes right back into personal protective safety, not equipment, but you, your partner, then the patient. Okay, so let's take care of you and your partner. Let's get the people we need to move these patients safely. We talked about this. Keep your body straight. There is a fly. I'm sorry, it keeps bugging me, so I'm not wigging out. I promise there's a fly. Lift without twisting your body. Ensure that you have a firm footing. This is really important, depending on where you're at watching these videos. Ice, mud, snow, gravel, dirt. Morning grass is slick. We know that. So let's pay attention to our surroundings. Once again, that's part of scene safety. Ensure the weight of the patient and know your physical limitations again. Good body mechanics, call for additional help. We talked about that. Communicate with other team members and practice lifts and moves. So when you get on scene, guys, and it can be a little 90-year-old woman that weighs 85 pounds, or it can be a 60-year-old man who weighs 400 pounds. You need to plan your exit. You need to plan your lift. How are we making these corners? How are we moving down that hallway? And that all needs to be planned ahead of time. Yes, there needs to be a team leader, but there doesn't need to be 5 team leaders. So work together. Whoever's got the most experience, they probably have the best ideas. Bounce ideas off each other. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, but work together for your safety and the patient's safety. Move a patient immediately if the following situations exist. So if we've got a fire, if we could have explosions, structure collapses possible, hazardous material present, the emergency scene cannot be protected. It's otherwise impossible to gain access to other patients who need life-saving care, which we'll talk about. Patient has experienced cardiac arrest. So if any of that's taking place, we got to move. We can't wait. With that being said, I'm not contradicting myself. I am saying find a way to get them moved. Grab that one extra person and be like, you get under one arm, I'm under one arm, we're dragging. Or grab the shirt. Each of you grab this person's shirt and take off. Pant legs, whatever it takes. This is an emergency drag because it's a dangerous situation. And cardiac arrest. The reason that's on there, there is no life threat to you, but there's cases where you cannot get in and perform CPR and perform, we need to get that AED on. We need to establish an airway. We need to start pushing meds. All of that, we can't do it in a closed, confined space, so we need to move them. The other one that said otherwise impossible to gain access to a patient who needs life-saving care. So this could be like car wrecks, is a good example. You've got the passenger car door won't open, the driver's door will. The passenger needs life-saving care where the driver is just injured. We're going to yank that driver out. We're going to move them to a safe location, and we're going to get to that person who needs life-saving treatment. So that's also an emergency move. Close drag, I just kind of talked about. Simple way to move a patient: grasp the patient's clothes in the neck and shoulder area. Rest patient's head on your arms and drag out of danger's way. I wanted to say the danger zone, and that didn't sound very good. Cardiac patients and close drag. We just talked about it. If the room in which you find the patient's not large enough, we're going to drag them out to where we can start providing CPR. The blanket drag, this is where we're going to roll a patient. We're going to get them on a blanket, or maybe they're already on a blanket. Maybe they're on a rug. We're going to grab that, and we're going to drag them through the house to a safe spot. We're going to drag them, down a hallway, whatever we need to do. This is not something that is unheard of. I personally have done this multiple times. The arm drag, you can see here, you're going to reach under, you cross their arms, you grab their wrist. That's actually very secure. It feels natural, if you will. Once you get a hold of their arms, it kind of locks everything in place and you can just take off with them. Before I move on, though, I want to say, be careful, because when you do this, you have a tendency to bend over while you're trying to walk backwards. You're going to cause back pain on yourself, back injury. So make sure that your posture is correct before you take off in this position. The firefighter drag, tie the patient's wrist together. We can use Coban, ACE wrap, whatever you have, tape. Tie the patient's wrist together. Get down on your hands and knees. Put their arms around your neck, and you just kind of take off dragging while you straddle them. It moves them down out of the way, out of danger. Emergency drags in a vehicle. One rescuer. So you grasp the patient under the arms and cradle the patient head between your arms. Pull the patient down onto a horizontal position as you ease him or her from the vehicle. This is one that we need to practice in classrooms, in person. This one is only if it's an extremely dangerous situation. The vehicle's on fire. You're on an icy road and there's still vehicles going by, and we need to remove somewhere to a safer area. This is when we're going to do this. Okay, so there's a picture of that. You went under their arms, you're around them, you grasp them, and you drag them backwards. Two or more rescuers. One rescuer supports the patient's head and neck, while second rescuer removes patient by lifting under the arms. Patient is removed with head and neck stabilized in a neutral position or natural position. Use longboard if time permits. So we will practice these once again, but we'll in trauma situations, C-spine is important. So when possible, we need to hold that inline stabilization, keep that neutral inline position. The extremity carry, this one's a little awkward. You can see there, rescuer one is behind the patient, goes under the arm just like before, gets hold of the wrist. So we have that, it feels like you're locked in. And then the second rescuer is going to go under the knees in that curve of the knees, and they're going to get a hold. It looks like she's actually under, and then she grabbed her belt or something. So there's no chance of it slipping loose. That patient's secured and they can take off. When you're doing this kind of stuff, though, guys, it's extremely important that you communicate. I can't say that enough. Work as one unit. Teamwork is critical in these emergency moves or patient moves. Two-person seat carry. There you go. I'm not going to read all of it. So this is actually very good for removing, I'm going to say, smaller people from like recliners. Um, Multiple times I've done this. It's a good way if you can get them on the edge of a bed and set up. Reach around, you guys grab arms or grab hands, whatever. That patient can kind of lean on you, and then you go under the legs and you grab arms. You essentially made a chair. Super easy. This is not something you want to do for a long distance. This is something you want to do from like the bed over to the cot, or from the chair across the room to the cot. Because as you can imagine, going through doorways like this is a little difficult. And then you've got the cradle and the arms carry. This one, I'm not a big guy. This one's difficult. If you are not just muscled up, grabbing an adult, lifting them when they're limp is not easy, but this is one of the carries that we can do. Under the arms, about in the armpit, one arm, and then under the legs again. We're going to lift with our legs, not our back, and then we're going to remove that patient from the area. This, once again, is not something you want to do for a long distance. Two-person chair carry, this one's kind of fun. Explain it to your patient. You need to be verbal. Again, hey, it's going to feel funny. You're not going to fall out. We're not going to drop you. So you guys lift that chair up. Like you can see, one's got the legs, one's got the armrest, and they use their bodies to support it. I would highly recommend that you have a third person behind whoever is backing up. So if the young lady in this picture is the one moving backwards, you want a third rescuer with their hand on her back, guiding her. Hey, we've got a door frame and 2 steps. We've got 3 steps you're going to go down. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You're talking to them, you're guiding them, because you don't want her to keep looking back, because now you're twisting. So vice versa, if it's the man walking backwards, we're going to do the same thing. Anytime you go down steps or through a building or through anything and someone's moving backwards, you want that third person with their hand on their back talking to them. The pack strap carry, this looks super uncomfortable. I've never done this one. We're going to throw them arms up over our shoulders. We're going to grab them, carry them like a little kid. Getting a piggyback ride, if you will. Let's see. Direct ground lift. Used to move patients from who are on the ground of floor to ambulance stretcher. Should be used only for patients who have not sustained traumatic injury. So if they have a traumatic injury, we're not going to do this. Okay. Once again, if you have a book, look in your book. Transfer a patient from the bed to the stretcher. Place the stretcher next to the bed, loosen it. Okay, so it's a sheet drag. So we can do a couple different things. When we get if we want to lift a patient using a mega mover or a sheet or a blanket, we can roll them, stuff it under, roll them back and pull it through, and then they're laying on a sheet. Or if we've got them on our cot and we arrive at the hospital, they're already on our cot sheet, we can loosen that sheet, and then we simply use the sheet to either slide them across onto the hospital bed. If they're larger, we can use a slicky board, which most hospitals keep in their ER, and it's literally just a slick board, so sliding is easier. Or we can do the sheet lift where, 4 or 5 of us have the sheet. We go 1, 2, 3, and we lift and we set them on the ER bed. This is something you will do if you choose a career in EMS or an ambulance service. You will do this multiple times a day, probably. One person walking assist. This is one way to do it. You wrap the arm around the neck, you hold the wrist, you reach around, you hold their waist. Announce what you're doing. Once again, I like to grab belts or even the seam of pants, just so I have something firm to hold on to. And if the patient doesn't want you to, be lifting them and they don't want to wrap their arms around you, there's other ways to assist. Read the room. This is a two-person, same thing. They've wrapped his arms around their neck, so they have all that weight on them. They are supporting his waist. And you slowly, at the patient speed, if it's not a dangerous situation, move to whatever location you are going to. Wheeled ambulance stretchers, they come in different varieties, different brands. This one right here is a lot like what we use in my service. 99.9% of them in today's world are the battery powered hydraulic cots. So you hit a button, it lifts up, you hit a button, it goes down. They're a lot safer for the first responders. They're a lot safer for the medics, because we're not lifting these patients anymore. So stretchers can be rolled or carried by 2 people or 4 people. If the surface is nice and smooth, 2 people can handle it. Anytime we go into a home or we go in somewhere across gravel or grass or anything rough, we want to do what's called the triangle carry or the triangle move, which we're going to have someone in the front, back, and on each side of that cot. And we just keep not lifting it, but we keep good pressure on it. That way, as we go across that rough surface, there's no chance of it tilting or tipping, which we just want to move it as quickly and as smoothly as possible with that patient. Portable stretchers used when wheeled stretchers cannot be moved into a small space. I personally do not have this on my unit. Smaller and lighter than a wheeled stretcher, can be carried in the same ways as a wheeled stretcher. The old stair chair, this is an old stair chair. This picture's terrible. So the newer ones are a lot nicer. Some of them even have like electronical slides, so they just kind of slide up and down stairs. We want to use these either in really tight confined spaces where a patient can set up on their own. That's one of the things we got to make sure of. So the patient gets placed on this. We put the seat belts on them. Usually, the fire department can help you with this, or whoever's on scene with you. And they can either be tilted back and rolled like down tight hallways, or get on Google and YouTube for this one. Look up stair chairs. There's so many out there. And they also will have like a rubber track on the back at an angle, and we can pretty much just slide them downstairs instead of bouncing them down each step. We can move them up and down stairs smoothly and safely. Usually it's ran by 2 people. 4 is best. Once again, when we're moving these, someone is going to be moving backwards. Let's have someone behind them guiding them. So stair chairs are used for setting patients, moving up and down stairs, obviously because of the name, or we can use them in tight hallways and stuff. Super cool tool to have. Immobilization devices. So we use C-collars for neck and back injuries. We use long spine boards. There's gonna be pictures on here, so I'm gonna just move on and keep talking. So this is a long spine board or a back board. These things are not comfortable. We don't want patients on them for long periods of time. These are for traumatic events where there might be spinal damage, or might be neck injury. So there's a whole section of skills on how to place a patient on one of these boards, and how to secure them to it, which I think this goes into it here in a minute. We also have things like the KED, one of my favorite tools right here. The KED has multiple uses, but its main purpose is, say you're in a car wreck, we've got to secure that spine, that head, and that neck with the patient in the vehicle. This is literally a portable small backboard. It's going to go in behind that patient while they're in the vehicle. You see these colored straps, that's actually will go around the midsection. We strap them, we secure them. There's straps down here on the bottom left. See if my mouse will work. There we go. Right here, these will go under each leg and get what we call seesawed up as close as we can to the groin area. They get clicked into place and tightened up tight. This patient is completely attached to this backboard. The back of this KED is just is stiff. You can see the ridges here all the way through this board. Those are solid. So it will form around the body, but it won't allow flex. So it forms, but it won't flex. Once we have them secured to that, this piece right here, this is a headpiece. It takes up the space between the back of this right here, which is where the head's going to be. Any space that is left, that pillow right there will fill that space. That way there's not movement. These straps, one strap on the forehead, one strap on the chin, secures the head to this and this. With that being said, at this same time, and I'm jumping kind of ahead, they're already going to have a C-collar on. Okay, we've already put a C-collar on. Now we are literally attaching them to that board. From there, we're going to rotate them. We're going to lay them back. We're going to put them on a backboard and secure them. So they're right there. You've got inline stabilization. You've got spinal stabilization. Love this tool. For those of you in class, we're going to talk about how to use these also for a fractured hip or broken hip, pelvis injuries, stuff like that. You can flip it upside down. You can put this portion right here around the hip area and cinch it up. And essentially you can cause a pelvic girdle, if you will, and it holds everything in place and nice and tight. So there's no movement when we have those fractured pelvises or hips. Awesome tool, favorite thing in the world to use. Scoop stretchers. So scoop stretchers will actually right down here in this little portion, there's a pin you can push and that stretcher will open up. You can also unattach it here if you need to. So it's two separate pieces. The idea behind it, this works really good for like broken hips and stuff. It will actually slide under the patient, so you don't have to roll the patient. It slides in there and slides in there under each side, and you click the ends together, and now you have a steady something under that patient that you can use to move them. You notice this one's aluminum, so it's cold. Once again, you're going to want to tell your patient what you're doing, and you need to watch out for I gotta watch how I word this. Not pinching excess skin. Some people are bigger, and these gaps right here are not very big. So when we slide them together under that patient, if they have a lot of excess skin, we've got to be very careful not to pinch it in between these pieces of metal. Scoop stretchers can be a wonderful tool. Once it's clicked together, you can have people on the front, back, and on the sides, and we can lift and move that patient to the EMS cot or gurney. So it's just saying here, in emergency situations, if we need that emergency move, something's happened, and we have to go right now. Some of the things you can do is wide sturdy planks, so a board, let's secure them to that somehow. Put them on a door. It's anything that will keep everything in line and we're not twisting the patient. That's the whole idea here. Ironing boards, sturdy folding tables, full length lawn chair recliners, surfboards, snowboards. Use your imagination, use what you have on the scene. I say the word quite a bit, common sense. Okay. If that patient has a traumatic injury and we think that there's a back or neck injury, we're always holding C-spine. And we want to get them moved away from the danger, but we need to do it as safely as possible. I'm going to jump ahead just for a second and say also remember, in some situations, life over limb. Sometimes we have to choose to keep them alive over spending extra time to do the right thing, if you will. That's not the right wording. Sometimes you've got to move them without any of this in order to save their life. Anytime a patient has sustained a traumatic injury, consider possible injury to the neck, spine, or head, neck, or spine. Sorry. Traumatic injuries. What is a traumatic injury? It's anything that might have damaged the bone, the tissue, the vessels. We've got to consider head, neck, and spine. So falls, sudden impacts such as car wrecks. A bicycle wreck can actually do traumatic injury. Motorcycle wrecks, plane crashes. I said falls, but it happens all the time. Even if someone is standing on the floor and they fall over, that can cause traumatic injury. Improper treatment can lead to permanent damage or paralysis. That's why it's so important that we try to do our best to secure those patients and immobilize them. We always want to immobilize the head and neck when possible, to neutralize in a neutral position to neutralize that movement of the head and neck or the twist of the spine. We want everything in line. Let's see. So when we secure someone onto a backboard or a door or a wood plank or whatever we're using, we need to use what we have available. We can use rags, towels, sheets, shirts, coats, blankets, pillows. We want to pack those voided areas. So behind the knees, we know when you lay down flat, there's a gap between the back of your knee and whatever surface you're laying on, or the gap between the back of your head and your shoulders. There's that spot in the back of your neck. We want to go ahead and put stuff in there. It takes strain off of our bodies. So anytime you have a void, where your tailbone is and where your back is, there's a gap that's usually kind of saggy and open. We want to stuff something in there. It takes away that flex. It takes away the movement, and it makes it more comfortable for that patient. For the patient. So yeah. C-collars. Sorry. So a C-collar is not comfortable. I'm going to tell you right now. Anytime you put one of these on, you need to tell your patient exactly what to expect. Sometimes you have to almost argue with your patient. Anytime we suspect trauma, head, neck, spine, we put a C-collar on. C-collars come in different sizes. There's pediatric and there's adult. They're adjustable, most of them. I need to try to get my hands on one once again. YouTube it. If you're in class with me, we are going to put these on each other. So the neck piece, when you first open a C-collar, it's flat like this orange one right down here. That's a foam one. I don't carry that. Mine are kind of like these. But when you take it out of the package, it's flat. Find that neck or that chin support, and usually you have to take it and flip it out, and it's going to feel like you're going to break it. You're going to pop it out, and then you can see how everything goes together. So when we put these on, when we'll practice them in class, we're going to slide it under while someone's holding C-spine, and we're going to install this C-collar without moving the patient's head. It's kind of tricky the first few times you do it. Talk to your patients, let them know exactly what you're doing, because as soon as you get that around their neck, they're going to start griping. They're going to start complaining. They're going to hate it. You have to explain to them you've been in a traumatic event. There's a possibility you might have some sort of neck or back trauma. We have to keep this on for your safety. Watch YouTube, get on there, see how they're installed, or if you're in class, we're going to do it in person. Cervical collar should be applied before patient is placed on the backboard. Right here is a good example. They're holding C-spine in A. You come over here to B. You see how they're sliding it under there? C, we're going to form it and get it lined up on that chin correctly. And then in D, we're going to take the other side and we're going to come around and we're going to Velcro it in place. There's only one way these go on. They don't. I mean, if that chin is not on the chin area, it's not right. We want to make sure they're on correctly. Once they're on, we don't want to remove them until we get to the hospital. The hospital can remove them. Unless something major takes place and we just absolutely have to get to that neck area, or if it's completely on wrong, that is the only time that we're going to readjust that. Once it's on, it stays on. So as an EMR, placing the patient on the backboard is not your primary responsibility. You're going to assist EMS. So you need to know all this. I'm not going to say you don't, but I'm also going to tell you, you will never just be thrown out there to the wolves by yourself. In most situations, EMS is going to arrive. We're going to ask you to assist us. And we will walk you through it. We're going to take over usually, but you're going to be right there beside us. So you do need to know the procedures and processes, but I don't want to just like blow your mind here and say you have to do all this because you don't. Let's see. So if you suspect a patient with a spinal injury, move the patient as a unit. We kind of talked about that. We don't want twisting. We don't want any type of separation or movement of that spine. We always transport face up, which is supine. Keep the patient's head and neck in a neutral position. That's holding that C-spine and using those C-collars. Be sure that all rescuers understand what is to be done before attempting to movement. This goes back to verbalize, verbalize, verbalize. Be sure one rescuer gives commands. So whoever has most experience or whoever lead, whoever the highest level of care is, they're going to take command. They're going to say, this is how we're doing it. This is when we're doing it. Is everybody on board? Make eye contact with everybody involved and be like, okay, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. And we all move as one unit. Real quick, I'm going to take a step back because reading this reminded me. Once we put that C collar on, we don't stop holding C-spine. So we're holding C-spine. Somebody is. Whoever initiates holding that C-spine, that's their job. The C collar goes on, they continue to hold C-spine. It's a good practice. If you're the one putting your C collar on, you put that collar on, you look them in the eye, and you say, continue to hold C-spine. We don't let go until the head is secured to a backboard. That's the only time we let go of C-spine. So whoever initiates that job, that is their job, nothing else. If someone yells at them and says, hey, go grab this. Sorry, I can't. I'm holding C-spine. After short backboard device is applied, patient is carefully placed on a longboard. So this is what we talked about, like the KED. For like the vehicle wrecks that I told you was my favorite tool. So even though we put that on them and it is literally a smaller version of a backboard, we are still placing them on a long backboard or a long board. Log rolling primary technique used for each patient. So we're going to take, it says requires a team of 4 rescuers. We're going to have someone about the knee or the feet. We're going to have someone at the waist. We're going to have someone in the midsection and shoulder area. And then we have our C-spine holder. Someone you're going to move with that patient as we roll in whichever way we go. The person holding C-spine is in charge. They're the ones that's going to count the countdown. So, okay, we're going to log roll them away from the main injury. So if my right side has a main injury, we're going to roll to my left. If my left is injured, we're going to roll to my right. But the guy who's holding C-spine, or the girls, is going to go, okay, we're going to roll this direction. Everybody's in place on my count. 1, 2, 3, roll. We're going to slide that backboard in. Everybody good on my count. 1, 2, 3, roll back. And now we're on a backboard. This technique will be practiced. It's a hands-on skill. Once again, if you're just watching my videos, YouTube it. Patient movement commands have 2 parts: a question, order for movement. Move the patient as a unit, keep the patient's head in a neutral position all time. So once again, I can't stress enough, holding C-spine. And is everybody ready? This is how we're moving them. 1, 2, 3, we're moving them. Okay. It's always a unit. We are a team. You can be on a scene with your worst enemy, and when you're doing that, we're still a team because it's for the patient. We do this for the patient. Straddle lift. I personally have not done a straddle lift. I have done a like where we're all on, like we have a sheet or a blanket and we all lift and set them on. So this is pretty much just where we're going to lift them up. You notice that, like I said earlier, the legs are supported, the hip area or pelvis area is supported, the shoulders and upper torso are supported, and then we have someone holding C-spine. So what they're going to do is everybody's going to get in position. They've got a fifth person in there that's not on the photos who is going to slide that board in when we lift up, and then we set that patient down. Person holding C-spine never stops holding C-spine. So it requires 5. There you go. We want to make sure that they're on the board good, which we can practice, or you can YouTube. We can do what's called the zigzag move. If we get a patient on the backboard and they're not on there straight, they're not on there centered, if you will, there's a technique where we can zigzag them and keep everything in line to get them properly aligned on that backboard. Moving on. Oh, sorry. So this is going to be used in narrow spaces. So I told you I hadn't done this one. What we have done in the past on real life calls is we will lift someone up and we'll actually slide our cot underneath them. So getting them on the backboard, it just depends on the situation. That was a tight area, so maybe we couldn't roll them to the side to put them on it. That's where you would use this. From there, we're going to strap them to the backboard and we can pick them up and carry them out. So I keep saying we're going to secure them to the backboard. There's different types of straps. Some backboards have seatbelt type straps like these that are pictured here, which are wonderful. They're already attached to the backboard and you literally just click them together, cinch them down. We never want to cinch to where someone can't breathe, but we are going to cinch them down tight enough that they cannot fall off or move. It's really important when we do this that we continue to communicate, if that patient's able to communicate with them. Can you breathe? Okay. Because we don't want to put a strap across the chest that doesn't allow that chest movement. So we just got to be careful for that. So here, once we put someone on backboard, and this is using, like I said, the seatbelt type straps, we secure the upper torso. We secure the legs using padding as needed. So like I discussed, we're going to pad those voided areas. We never want to secure the head first. So while we're doing this, you're still holding that C-spine. Someone else is applying strap A, C, B. We come up, we can do the head, or you can do A and B and then the head. But we just never do the head first. The reason is if you secure that head down first, and you notice there we've got the head blocks, we have straps on the head and the chin. We also have a C collar. If that patient becomes irate or starts fighting us and tries to roll or twist, their head is tied to that board. And we do not want that. We don't want their body weight going against their head. So their head here and their body goes this way, we're in trouble, right? We never secure the head first. Blanket roll is an important device that works as well as ready available. Fold blankets, always maintain back rolls. Okay, so this is talking about head mobilization. If you don't have head locks, you can use blankets. We're going to roll them up, we're going to put them down. We just want to take movement out of the head. Head stabilization must be maintained through the entire process. We've talked about that. Foam head blocks, they come in different styles, if you will. We on the unit I work for, ours are round foam that just set right up against the head. And then we have, it's like a tape that comes with it that goes forehead and chin. You'll notice that the head is being held in figure A, inline stabilization. In B, the head blocks are secured. They are now holding the head blocks instead of the head, but it's doing the exact same thing. Down here in C, the straps are being placed on the patient, so the head is being held. And then in D, they have let go because it is now secured to the head blocks. The one thing that this picture is missing is there is another strap that would go around that C collar on that chin and hold everything in line. But that you can kind of see the process there. We continue to hold C-spine. We held the blocks, which is holding C-spine, until everything was strapped down, secured. So your general summary here, your general guidelines when moving a patient, do no further harm to the patient. Move the patient only when necessary. Sorry, I'm on call today, so I have to listen to my radio. Move patients only when necessary. So if it's not an emergency, let EMS arrive and take care of that and assist you. Move the patient as little as possible. Move patient's body as a unit. Use proper lifting and moving techniques, and have one rescuer give commands when moving. So everything we've talked about, we don't move them unless we have to. We only want to move that patient once if possible. We're gonna always work as a unit, one smooth movement, and use proper lifting techniques. Someone's in charge. Whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Someone's in charge. We come up with a plan together. They do the count. They do the leadership of it. Unconscious patients who have sustained trauma should be placed in the recovery position. Who have not sustained trauma, sorry. So we're unconscious, but we're breathing and we have a pulse. We're going to put them in a recovery position. That keeps that airway open, which is vital. We'll talk about that in a different chapter. And then we want to make sure that if they do vomit or they have something come up, that it comes out. It doesn't just sit there and gargle and get aspirated. If a patient is on the floor or ground during an emergency situation, you may have to drag a person away from the scene instead of trying to lift and carry the person. Do not lift and move a patient if you suspect a spinal injury, unless it's necessary to save that patient's life due to a life-threatening situation. EMS services typically use wheeled ambulance stretchers, portable stretchers, stair chairs, longboards, short boards, and scoop stretchers. A cervical collar prevents excessive movement of the head. We've talked about log rolling is a primary technique used to move patients onto the backboard. Once a patient has been secured to that backboard, head and neck must be immobilized. We cannot put someone on a backboard and not stabilize that head and neck. That defeats the purpose of using the backboard. So guys, that's the end of chapter 3. Once again, read your chapter. Reach out to me if you have questions. If you're in class, we're going to do it in person. So don't let this freak you out. We're going to demonstrate everything multiple times. If you're not in the class, you're just following on YouTube, go ahead and YouTube some other channels that actually show it in process. Thanks for sticking it out with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.